Secretariat by 2 lengths. Sham driving second. There's a strong left-handed whip again by Pinkai. He goes to it time and time again, but Ronnie Turcotte has his whip put away. And
of Simply Majestic, who turns for home, and Cordero goes to the whip. Simply Majestic comes roaring off the turn with the lead by 1.5 lengths.
Hey, the whip is out on Smarty Jones. It's been 26 years. It's just 1 furlong away.
About 30 inches long, leather, and filled with controversy. That is about the best way to describe the whip or crop that is used by jockeys today in thoroughbred horse racing. Used by jockeys for decades for both safety and encouragement, today's world of public perception has put the riding crop strictly in the crosshairs of social acceptability. Should it be banned? Should its use be restricted to only for safety? Should things remain the same? Is there even a possibility for middle ground? Thoroughfan tries to look at all of these issues as Doc discusses the racing crop. Riding crops have undergone many changes throughout the decades that horses have been racing. Many of these changes have been brought about with the welfare of the horse in mind. Still, no matter what changes are made, there is always a segment of the population that has this kind of response to anyone using the crop on our horse.
Funny, it didn't seem that painful when you were doing it to the horse.
So first, let's look at the riding crop itself. What exactly is it? Today, based on rules set forth by the Association of Racing Commissioners International, the following must be adhered to regarding the construction of the riding crop. It shall be a maximum of 8 ounces, be a maximum of 30 inches in length, have a shaft with a minimum diameter of 3/8 inches, and this shaft's contact area must be smooth with no protrusions or raised surfaces, and covered by shock-absorbing material that gives the compression factor of at least 1 millimeter throughout its circumference. At the end of the shaft is what is called a flap. The flap, the part that, when used correctly, is most often contacting the horse, has its own set of requirements, and they are: length beyond the end of the shaft can be maximum of 1 inch, its width a minimum of 0.8 inches and a maximum of 1.6 inches, no reinforcements or additions are allowed beyond the end of the shaft, no binding within 7 inches of the end of the shaft, and shock-absorbing characteristics similar to those the contact area of the shaft has. There have been further modifications to most riding crops that are used today, and we'll get into those in a little bit. There can be no argument that the riding crop has changed drastically from its very early days in racing. As you can see in these pictures and paintings, really early riding crops appear to be more thin stick-like structures and nothing else. Then they began to change to more of a shaft with a leather flap on the tip. It is not a stretch to think that when these types of crops, many horses likely suffered welts, cuts, and bruises from being hit during a race. Even around the turn of this century, the crops were not like they are today. The next evolution was what was known as the popper whip, which had a slight alteration in design of both the flap and the shaft to make so the crop made more noise than actual impact on the horse's skin. This pop is what is heard when jockeys use the crop in a race. After the popper came the cushion crop. These types of crops have a cushion material between 2 longer pieces of leather that make up the flap portion of the crop. Proponents say, with this crop, there is so much padding that, again, when used correctly, it is practically impossible to cause welts or cuts on a horse's skin. Some argue that horses don't even feel the crop hitting them, and it is more of a reaction to the popping sound that these crops make that get the horses to respond. Opponents to crop use in general, and we'll get to that in a little bit, state that how is this possible that a horse cannot feel it when they can feel so much as a fly landing on them? Whatever the thinking, these cushion crops are basically what are mandated to be used now by all jockeys at tracks in the US and many jurisdictions around the world. The most recent innovation to now come on the market for crop use is what is known as the 360 GT, or more affectionately known as the Nerf whip. This crop was designed by retired jockeys Ramon Dominguez and Carlos Marquez. This new design took the padded approach of a crop to a whole new level. Whereas even the cushion crops had their flaps being more flat in nature, the flap, so to speak, on the 360 crop is a cylinder of compressible foam material, like Nerf. This makes them both softer and eliminates the chance of the edge of the flap hitting the horse instead of the flat portion and potentially causing some damage to the horse's skin. Many top riders have begun using the 360 GT crop and have been quite satisfied with it, so it looks like it will be the main crop of the present and future. Thoroughfan will be looking to have an interview with Ramon soon to talk with him more about this new crop. So why does a jockey even need a riding crop? What purpose does it serve in a race? Most jockeys will tell you it comes down to two elements: safety and encouragement. Everyone knows that pound for pound, jockeys are probably the toughest athletes in all of sports, competing in a sport that is one of the most dangerous. For as the old adage goes, in practically no other sport does an ambulance follow the athletes as they compete. However, no matter how strong you are, a 1,000 to 1,200 pound horse going on average 35 miles per hour down a racetrack is going to win out in a test of wills every time. Oftentimes, all it takes is one misstep or a horse ducking in or out to cause a potentially catastrophic chain reaction fall. A jockey can often feel this shift happening before it is seen visibly, and a quick strike with the crop can often refocus a horse and keep them on a straight path. Some racehorses are like some people. Some are just naturally more competitive and give their all in every single thing they do, and some are a little more lazy and need some extra oomph to get them motivated. This is where jockeys will say the crop is a tool to get that maximum effort out of a horse. This seems to be especially true for horses that may be coming from behind in a race and need that extra push to keep their momentum up. Horses are also by nature considered herd animals, so many say that in order to get them to move away from the pack and win a race, they need that extra motivation a racing crop provides. This can often be seen when a horse all of a sudden strikes the front in a race and seems to be ready to pull away, but then starts to slow down because no other horses are around them. A jockey may be seen striking a horse with the crop a time or two in this situation to keep them focused and their speed up. Talk with any respected jockey and they will say the crop is a tool to be used to help get maximum effort from a horse and not something to abuse a horse with that has already given their all. So that hopefully gives you a brief history of how the racing crop has evolved over history and why it is used by jockeys in a race. Coming up in part 2 of this series, Thoroughfan is going to dive a little deeper into the issue, looking at if there is science to support whether the riding crop does hurt or help a horse, how the riding crop is supposed to be properly used by jockeys, how the rules have been evolving over crop use in racing, how those rules may affect the industry in the future, and what the various stakeholders in racing have to say about how they feel the crop should be used in racing today. As always, if you, the racing fan, are looking for information that has anything to do with this wonderful sport of thoroughbred horse racing, the only place you need to look for the most accurate and up-to-date information is right here at Thoroughfan.